Socializing.
All righty. After taking care of a few technical difficulties, I think we're good to go. I have a quorum, 7 of us, right?
7:10 PM. Yeah,
Six,
there's
yeah.
7 of us.
So we're
No,
good.
2, 3, 4, there's 6 of us.
Yeah. 2 reserve fund transfers, a discussion to increase the spending limit on the pay-as-you-throw revolving account for fiscal year '26. That wasn't very clear. It's for this year's program. So what that would end up doing, and if I had more time up front without trying to chase. Yeah, Ken's here, I know. We're going to get there. I just wanted to give the numbers. I think the number goes to 95,000 or 96,000?
60 to
95,000. So Ken, come on up and,
Is that for
fiscal year '26, the current year, the current year we're in.
final 30?
Current year, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ken Lacey, Health Director.
Hi.
So, yeah, we're looking to increase the pay-as-you-throw. We have run to a variety of things up at the landfill. We did, as you guys are aware, we did the grading project, which we got financed for last year. We got the funding from the town. And that project is close to being wrapped up, but in the interim, over the winter, we lost our pumps in the lift station. So after going out and looking at how we can get them fixed and corrected and whatnot, that a big chunk of that 35 is taking care of those pumps at the lift station. And once we started doing the pumps, it came in at a little bit under 20,000, and then we got into it, and there was pipes and whatnot that needed to be fixed that weren't accounted for. Because once they fixed, for those of you who don't know, it's a lift station. So leachate comes in, it fills up, and it pumps it from there into tanks that we would then pump the leachate away from and haul away. All those fun numbers that you see on my leachate and all that kind of stuff. So those weren't working. So the leachate wasn't getting to where we could pump it out, and we had to hire another company to come in and vacuum out the lift station to try and keep us in compliance. And then going to get prices and all that kind of stuff, and we ended up, in the mid-20s by the time we're all said and done. And we have 2 other bills from hazardous waste disposal that we need to take care of. So instead of coming in for reserve fund transfer, they're all payable and can be used under pay-as-you-throw. Just met with Barbara, and we came up with the idea of why don't we increase this rather than looking for reserve fund transfer. And that's what I'm hoping for tonight, is to increase our spending by another $35,000 in the pay-as-you-throw this year.
And it's basically doing what we did for fiscal year '27
Okay.
retroactively, going
Correct.
backwards.
Yeah.
For 1 year to take care of these expenditures.
Yeah, and just so you know, because I know you've looked at them and looked at numbers, and we talked, what we've done for '27 is not sustainable forever. It was a stopgap to get us in a place to help balance books and whatnot. So I'll be back to see you guys in January with a different presentation and how we're going to
Okay.
work
There's
with
been
that.
a couple of hits in recent years. You used to take the stuff from outside vendors and then charge them, and that would cover our shipping costs to get rid of all of that.
We're not seeing nearly the numbers, like we did, and Robin came to our meeting on Tuesday, and we're having a conversation of the discussion of what the recycling market looks like. Most of the recycling, anything we air quotes, if we make, is usually a wash on covers trucking, or covers so we're not seeing the 50, 60,000 a year that we used to bring in. I think this year, we might get close to 10 grand, which is nowhere near paying for itself or doing that kind of stuff.
And we have to get cover material now because we lost the sand from, we using the DPW sweepings when they clean the roads.
Yep, so we're still buying sand, but we've augmented that with, we mix it with some of our compost, and then we get free crushed glass from Casella as a 50% of our cover material. So we blend it and make a, composite material that we use for covering.
Right.
So,
That answers the question, what's the value of recyclable glass, right? When you get it for free.
if we get it for free from Casella, now there's multiple grades of recyclable glass, as you know. We're getting the lowest grade on the totem pole, but they supply us.
Serves the purpose, right?
Serves a purpose, and as soon as Casella closed up in Southbridge, they were looking for a place to start, moving it to. So we're one of those places.
Okay.
So, I don't have a problem with the ask. Help me understand this black box of a revolving fund there. What are the revenues coming into that, source of the revenues coming into that fund?
So the
We talked about what we're spending it on. If we didn't have these big expenses, what else would you be spending it?
So the
out of that fund?
PAYT is the pay-as-you-throw program, and that was instituted, I think that was about a decade ago. And basically, when anybody, there's multiple ways to use our recycling center. You can use it to just dispose of your trash, you can use it to do recycling, you can use it for just recycling, just trash. When you do trash, you need to purchase bags, and there's 3 locations around town, there's supermarkets that we have, and you need to purchase one of our bags. Deposit your trash in there and dump it in there. That money that we make from those bags is what funds the PAYT program. And we bring in,
Hand that to Mike.
I think right now we're bringing a little under 30,000 a year it comes in every year from that.
That's a lot of money.
So, and we can use, there's a kind of a broad brush on there, anything to deal with waste disposal, trash disposal, or anything doing in that maintenance or management of that trash that we have. Sometimes when we have overages in like water testing and whatnot down there, if we have to go back and get hit for like $2,000 here or whatnot, we can use it for that. We've used it for the surveys that we've been doing pretty regularly, so we have a good handle on what we have for usable space left.
Yep.
And I will, hopefully, I have a presentation for you, this committee, sometime this summer, when it works for you on your schedules. I'm still meeting with Robin and Barbara and my board, but we do know where we're at, and we're under that 5-year marker right now. We have a good handle on where we're at and what we're filling and what it looks like. So I'll be talking to you guys. We're looking at a closure committee between the select board and the Board of Health to create a closure committee coming up sometime this summer, I believe, and start discussing what does it look like,
Did you say $30,000 a year is what you get for revenue in that program?
About, yeah, we're a little bit, maybe a little bit under that. I think it might be.
But you're only
20.
bringing in 30, so you've accumulated some money over the
Well,
10
that's-
years?
Well, then this is, as we've had the conversation and working through Barb and what, yeah, we, prior to me, and prior to that, there was a different methodology to stockpiling things, so, and that's not the ideal way to manage the funds and what it was designed for. So by the time I got here, we were already stockpiled into the hundreds of thousands. So we are now using that for some of the projects that were out there. But instead of, and as you noticed, you're looking at the budget that comes in every year, a variety of those things aren't there now. The survey number isn't in there anymore, and some of the other items, the little $5,000, $10,000 items have been plucked and put into what we could fund itself, or help fund what this was designed for, and using it to cover some of the operational expense that is related to trash and trash management in the landfill proper. So, that makes sense.
So that's how you can afford a $100,000 or $90,000 outflow, because you've got a stockpile.
Yeah, I think we have 170 some odd in there right now,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, 178,801 according to the
there you
bill.
go, yep. So,
Why isn't that being used for the?
That is what we're using.
That's
What he's doing. He's asking to increase the cap so we can spend the.
I don't think it's he was just, I think he's asking just for information on why we're using it, how we start, so it built up over the years, and we got into a better fiscal brain with the money and started expending it towards expenses that were down there rather than coming and asking you guys for more money.
So right at the fiscal year 26 town meeting, we set the cap at what he can expend from that fund at $60,000.
Right.
He wants to adjust the cap upward to $95,000 so it can access the funds that are already there to
Yes.
be spent for these purposes.
Yeah, I'm pushing that envelope. We're I don't know, right, I don't know, 5,000 or 7,000 from hitting that cap, but I have 30 some odd $1,000 in bills.
Why was the
so.
cap put on anyway?
Because it has to be. It's a
There's always a
revolving
cap.
fund.
I've got,
Part of the law.
yeah, one of my revolving funds has got a $20,000 marker, this one's got a $60,000, and over the years, this one started at 20, and we've moved it up progressively over the past 5 years to utilize more of that towards this closure process and surveying and wells and that kind of stuff, so.
Also provides you checks and balances for those expenditures, so that
Yep.
you don't just deplete the account.
So on an annual basis, day-to-day basis, you can't use this $30,000 to fund the operations then and not have any at the end of the year, have no surplus if you want.
No, I can't just go ahead and grab it. And what we're using it for is, like I said, we've already accounted for, pretty much, we had about 40,000 kind of knew we were going to do it, and the extra 20 was for other things we saw coming up with projects this year. The unforeseen portion was the failure of the pumps.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, we didn't expect to have the pumps fail and to lay that out, so.
Yeah, so this is, because this is going to be a capital expenditure, obviously, right? Pumps?
I'm going to say capital expenditure, it's, I don't know how to qualify that. That would be a better question for Barbara on that side. It's.
Let me jump in if I could.
Yep.
So, I wouldn't use the word stockpiling, but I think there was a definite, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Really loud now.
There was a different philosophy of what the money in this account would be used for. And so Ken and I have been working, having discussions really for the past several years. And now we're at the point we're starting to have some operational expenses for the program. And that's what we have determined in the past few years to use these funds for. So whether you guys approve this out of the revolving fund, or if we come for a reserve fund transfer, we definitely need additional money to cover the costs that Ken just outlined. This is an absolutely, each year we set the spending caps for the revolving funds. It's $60,000 in fiscal '26. I believe we might have increased it 2 years ago based on, we saw, as Ken said, some operational and more capital in nature, not huge capital items, but things that we could definitely use this fund for, and that's really why this revolving fund was set up. The money that goes in is very specific, Ken outlined that, and the cost of what we can use the funds for is also very specific, and operational expenses, equipment, or supplies related to the pay-as-you-throw program. And that this is what Ken is finding he's needing to do right now, and the $60,000 cap did not take into account the added expenses that he currently has. One of the reasons that we increased the cap to $100,000 for fiscal '27 is because we did know when we were putting the budget together that there were some items that we decided that we were going to fund through the pay-as-you-throw program. So the goal is not to have no money in the account, but to start using the funds that were built up for the capital needs, and those are now here. And once those are gone, then we would have to tap back into the budget, but this is an appropriate use of those funds. This is a two-pronged vote, so the first vote is the Finance Committee, and then there's an agenda item for the Select Board meeting on Monday, and they will also have to vote to increase the cap. And this is just through June 30th. It's the expenses that Ken has outlined, and I guess I would say this: if you don't want to go this route, then we'll have to do a reserve fund transfer on the fly for tonight, because that's the only other option for funds.
Okay, so then, the way I see the motion, and I would read it as our motion would be to increase the pay-as-you-throw program revolving fund maximum expenditure for fiscal year '26 to $95,000. So.
I like that motion.
Mike makes the motion. Do I have a second? Larry will go. All right, any other questions or comments for either Ken or Barbara?
Just a quick one, maybe, when does this ultimately become a transfer station? Is that still way out there, or is that getting closer?
Getting closer. It's when we close the landfill up, that'll be another discussion. Is a transfer station, or where do we move into? That's a whole nother town-wide, like more of a committee, select board, health department conversation. What do we do with it? Transfer station, recycling center, what does it become? So there's, yes, that's I would say, next 5 years.
Okay.
Close it down and hire someone to do trash pickup?
There's all
townwide,
those-
There's
there's
many
a bunch of
options.
options to look at,
all,
yes.
all on the table, yeah.
It all ends up in New
Yeah,
Jersey
monopoly
anyway.
money that way. I don't mean that as funny money, I mean literally, you sign a monopoly agreement with one trash pickup person to come through, and you
A
get a
lot of communities
licensing
do
fee
that,
for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, so I have a first and a second to increase the max expenditure limit to $95,000. Any other questions? All those in favor? And that's 6-0.
Fantastic.
So great, thank you, Ken, for coming in and
Appreciate your time.
explaining it. No, thank you.
And I will be in touch and see if I can't line up some time. I don't know when it works for you guys, August, September. I know you break for a period.
Oh, I mean, we're available as, on an on-call as needed basis, so.
Okay, but like I said, we've talked about it last year and whatnot, so I have some better numbers and a little presentation for you on what the landfill is, what it looks like, when we'll be closing and what that's gonna look like, and
That'd be good to hear because it's been
Yeah.
a topic for a while.
I know, and I've got some much better numbers on that now, so.
Excellent.
Good to see you guys.
Great, thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to item number 2 on the agenda, which is the reserve fund transfers. There's 2 of them, just as it's noted on the document. You know, coming into this meeting, we have $150,927.63 in the reserve fund. If we were to approve both of these, we would end up at $125,335.03. So that's just an FYI. So the first one we'll take up is the Joshua Hyde Building Purchases or Services account. You can see there were a lot of unexpected expenses this year that goes along with their normal anticipated expenses, so they're gonna end up a little short. So they're looking for a transfer of $592.60. How much again? $592.60, excuse me, yep.
That's the present balance.
No,
The credit
oh, I
card-
read it wrong, sorry.
4,100.
The amount requested is 4,100, thank you, Jim.
Okay.
I was reading it backwards. Thank you very
That'll-
much.
that'll
That's the
confuse your
present
mind.
value, yeah.
Busy week,
So
huh?
wait, I gotta adjust that, because I put in 59.2, I read that completely backwards the whole time.
Yeah, I think your final balance is not 100.
It's not, it is not correct, you're right. So now, if I get that correct, it is now $121,827.63. I got that really backwards, I apologize.
I agree with that number.
I was so confused.
Okay, so I don't know if we have any questions for Barbara, who's here to answer questions for both of the reserve fund transfer.
Just for educational purposes, so the way this is set out, it says, okay, with the elevator broke down, leaving a deficit of 4,700, and then 1,295 exceeding the budgeted amount. We had funds there to cover those items?
Yes, because there was surplus in other areas of her budget. So this $4,100 will get her through, what she needs to get through to June 30th.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I was just curious, the $2,600 in known upcoming expenses, do you have any examples of what those might be?
Did you hear that question?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I do. So, they had to hire an electrician, for 3 specific things. One was the automatic door opener, one was a light on the back stairwell, and, so those 2 things are related to electrician. And then there's also, a clock above the elevator that needs some repair.
Okay. When you say, okay, just maybe is unexpected or unforeseen, carpet cleaning, monthly pest control, if somebody says monthly pest control, I can foresee that. Carpet cleaning, I can foresee that.
Right.
I don't consider it unforeseen.
They're not saying those are unforeseen.
In other unforeseen building
The
expenses.
budget is short because of the unanticipated expenses for the HVAC repair and the elevator repair. And so what she's saying is that she still has bills to pay for the balance of the fiscal year that were budgeted for, that, which is why we need the additional $4,100.
Yeah, that's fine. If she said $4,100 because of the HAVC and elevator, I get that. You know, things break down, and you can't foresee it. But why did she put carpet cleaning? I mean, this is kind of like. No. It's ridiculous, but it's just like.
The amount requested will be used for carpet cleaning, electrician, monthly pest control, and other unforeseen building expenses. So if you did not give her this reserve fund transfer, she wouldn't be able to cover those bills that are still needing to be paid in the year because the money went towards, so the anticipated things, that money went towards the unanticipated.
Right.
Okay.
The way the sentence reads, it could be construed that the first three things, carpet cleaning, electrician, and monthly pest control, could be construed as unforeseen, but that's not the meaning of that sentence.
No.
Right.
It's not the meaning of
Right.
that sentence.
Right.
Unforeseen means in addition to those, that's what.
There may be something else that might
She's
come
gonna do
up.
it for
So
that,
that's-
and if there are anything she doesn't see that didn't put on the list, she's gonna cover those expenses.
So basically, it used to be the practice for reserve fund transfers that, let's say an unexpected expense for $50,000 happened in the department in October. And we know we still have all the way to June 30th for that thing. They would wait until now they've depleted everything they have because with even including that unexpected thing. And now they would come in March maybe for that $50,000. So she's doing what we've always done. She's expended pretty much everything she knows of, and now looking at her known expenses, I'm short by this amount of money and I need a reserve fund transfer to cover my budget.
Yeah. So she's saying, in other words, if I don't get the money for the elevators and the.
No, she already spent that money.
Spent that.
She took it out of her building budget, and so she's short to be able to pay for carpet cleaning, electricity, and monthly pest control, and maybe something small unexpected that still comes up. She's just short on her budget expenses because she paid for the unanticipated costs already.
The unforeseen expenditures ate up the foreseen budget.
Yeah, that's a good way to
Well,
put it.
it would have been nice if they said that.
I do,
get it.
I'd read it that, I don't read it the way you do. I think it's written fine, so.
Yeah, I didn't see her.
So, would you like a motion
approve the
to
transfer,
approve the
okay.
transfer of $4,100 from the reserve fund to the library purchase services 11962-52,000 for the purpose of library building expenses?
Yeah, purchase of services, yeah. $4,100. Got a first, Larry seconds. Any other questions or comments related to this reserve fund transfer? All those in favor? That's 6-0, okay, great. And the third item here is the reserve fund transfer of $25,000 for the town council purchase of services. And there were some unanticipated, court costs. And
You got some ongoing litigation costs, it's costing more than we had in the budget for this year, they're asking for more money. How about I'll make a
Exactly.
motion to approve the transfer of $25,000 from reserve fund to the town council purchase of services account 11512-52,000 for the purposes of ongoing legal expenses.
perfect. Do I have a second? Larry, okay. All right, so let me just fill this paperwork out for a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's 6-0. Great. So that gets us through the reserve fund transfers. And the next thing on the agenda is just, the restructuring of the Finance Committee report. I sent out an email earlier today, kind of just, trying to give a rough skeletal structure of what what we have, what we may want to add. I also sent around what we actually printed in this report versus, Mike took a crack at some other things we may want to consider informing the public about. My idea is just, I'm always been, the more information we can give someone attending the town meeting, the better informed decisions and votes they're going to take. So
I'll just take 1 second. So the driver of my comments when we were going over this on the last night, our report and the draft I sent you after was, I don't think the report gave the full story this year. It's, in my mind, it's a $60 million worth of expenditures. We focus on a $40 million operating.
We focus on what drives the tax rate, but not everything that gets spent, and that's where I think,
And there's a lot of expenses that we review and make recommendations on that are water and sewer. There's a lot of free cash expenditures. So I just felt that it would be better to tell the bigger story and kind of lay it out where those funding sources kind of are. So that's the other draft in here was my approach to say, here's the big story, not just, the driver of the raise and appropriate funds, but everything that we're asking you to take action on, and the implications for that. Because if you're a water and/or sewer customer, you're seeing tax increase. You're also going to see increases over there. We spend a lot of time looking at those numbers. How come we're not talking about that and explaining this story and hopefully a streamlined and to the point, but to get the big picture. And at this year's town meeting, there were some questions about, how much is in that water fund, the sewer fund? How much are we going to, is there a lot of money stored up in there? Is it coming down? Maybe it's in the book somewhere, but if we kind of work that into, the discussion there as well, it might stand out for people. They'd have a better picture of what's going on, so.
yeah, and I have no problem in doing that. It's just, I want to make sure we differentiate, expenditures from funds we already have the means to pay for, whether it's free cash or a stabilization fund, versus those funds, and I know water and sewer figure that in for a certain percentage of the town's population, that are going to directly affect what they have to pay the town for that next fiscal year.
And if it's free money coming from a third party, that's great. Let's spend it all. Let's have a party. But a lot of that other stuff, we hear it on CPA. Well, we got the money, we might as well spend it. Well, that money came from taxpayers in town. If we got rid of CPA, we wouldn't have the money, but your taxes would be lower. Your expenses as a taxpayer, a water user, a sewer user, your expenses would be
Yeah, it would be
lower
dropped.
and so forth. So.
Hi, Larry.
This may be just a question in anticipation of our fuller, more detailed discussion. I'm thinking, this is background to the question, of the incremental increase in pagination, printing. That's not a reason not to do it. I'm just thinking it wouldn't hurt to be mindful of that, because the way the paper is printed and folded, and the folios, as they're called, and so forth. In any event, what you're talking about, which I happen to think is a very good idea, in light of conservation of paper, if that does not cut short the transfer of information, could you envision a series of pie charts with swoopy arrows showing it was here, and if you vote for it, the money is going to go like that? And that would save space and would depict what if the funds could grow feet, that's the way they'd move.
So do it as a series of informative charts instead of writing it all out.
Or we could supplement that. This is 5 or 6 pages. I don't think that's going to break the bank on pagination and how thick the book is. We can cut out a couple warrant articles or change the fonts if need be. So I don't think space to tell the overall message to people. If this were 60 pages, I'd say we've gone too far. But we're 5 or 6 in a pretty good sized font.
Well, I realize this is...
But certainly taking some of this and maybe depicting some of the state as well in terms of some, that goes to my KPI stuff I was doing before. Maybe there's a way to add some charts in there as well to give historical and trends and so forth for people who are more visual versus
Exactly. Some people are allergic to some
We keep
depictions.
talking about stabilization funds, here's where they are. We can talk about we're taking X dollars out and the fund balance will be Y when we're done, but, here's where, look at some of the charts I did before. We want to put those in there as well for them to kind of see the historical trend and get some feels for that.
Or even tabular data with a big plus or a big minus with the 5 words saying, this goes from here to there. Because, we live with this stuff, but a lot of people don't, and they're allergic to it. So,
And that goes back to, what's the message we want to deliver, and let's find the most efficient and effective way to deliver that.
yeah, with
As part of our public.
clarity always being king.
Yeah.
So I took a shot at what I thought was needed, the broader pieces, and, others can weigh in with.
Yeah, and that's basically
Add or delete. Yeah.
the homework now is compare, contrast, look at that structure, what would you change, what would you add, that's just there for like, general purposes. And
Sure.
we
I
can-
think the gentleman that came up at the meeting was talking about, we use all these destabilization fund, free cash, and they're like, sorry, like you just said, Larry, we don't live this every day. So I think we need a glossary somewhere to explain what these things are. We use abbreviations, we use anachronisms, and these people are
We
like,
try
yeah, you talk about it all
to
day
take
long.
care of the abbreviations. But right, because we say
They
it's
should know
coming
what-
from
what it means.
ambulance stabilization fund, people don't necessarily know what an ambulance stable, or a fire apparatus stabilization fund.
This
Used
is
to be in there.
the former back page of a finance committee report of about 15 years ago with the definitions.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it was proposed about a year ago. I think it got lost in the shuffle. But it can be done. Here it is. And
Why was it taken out? Why did somebody take it out? I mean, you probably, maybe you don't know the answer, I'm not trying to, but why was it taken
I
out?
think I think at one point it got somewhat outdated and we just needed to update the definitions and it just fell by the wayside. And because it was confusing, the definition not being exactly correct, it went away.
Well, then we correct them.
but
That doesn't mean we made it better, we probably made it worse overall, but.
but the beauty part is, there's got to be a back page, a back cover anyway.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
yeah, it could go in the back
Here's the
here.
paper, right? Here's your paper.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the finance committee should champion conservatism in the expenditure of the public's money.
No question about that. So we're gonna put a glossary of some sort back in, then that's, we'll probably.
That's the
recommend.
plan. I mean, and maybe that's, add that to the structural thing, because I completely lost sight of it again. And Larry's correct, he did send it to me, and it just fell by the wayside in the process, the mad dash across the finish line.
I think the write-up this year, and then when reading it, that you put out initially, even what we're doing and stuff, I thought it was good. I thought it was better this year. A lot of things, concerns, and uncover some things versus other ones I saw. I thought we did a good job that way in the introduction. If somebody read it, I think it was genuine, and fair and reasonable. It wasn't sugarcoating anything. We did
We're not
say
trying
this
to
is positions.
sugarcoat
I
it.
like that, yeah. So, nice job.
And we try to deliver the message, and I think it was in our draft, yay, we have a balanced budget, but we got there by shifting some things around, and I think we
And we're still covering.
wouldn't prefer to shift them where we did. I know there was some discussion, but it was all within these are the tools we have, let's get this thing through in the best.
And there was
way.
nothing
And the-
nefarious about anything that was done. It was all,
But, that's also part of that message that we need to deliver. Don't walk out of it thinking we're in great shape, a balanced budget. We had a struggle to get this to you, and,
Right. Yeah, it's a good way to think of it. I think, I forget what meeting I was in, but someone put it, what we're doing a good job in this town is staving off a Proposition 2.5 override request. We're manage our funds, so we're pushing down the road the fact that sooner or later, we're gonna be like every other town in the state, because our increases are going up, high single digits, double digits, but our state increases are very low single digits. So at some point, those are just going to get out of balance.
I think it really is valuable to the public if the finance committee always keeps a distinction front and center, which is displaying the movement of the money, as you've identified, the distinction between that and the moving of it itself as a way of managing the public's money. Those are two different subjects. The latter is often called good management. Commingling them means losing not one point of view, but both points of view. So revealing, drawing back the curtain, hooray, hooray, arguing whether the curtain should exist, that's a different story. We got to keep them separate.
But I think you're right. I think, in a way, we mask that there are good fiscal management practices taking place in managing the resources we have to keep our funding levels at least equal to the prior fiscal year, and maybe add something.
And if somebody questions that distinction, well, turn it around. Don't practice good management and have the fight over Proposition 2.5, where somebody says, why the hell didn't you do good management?
So basically, I'm looking, take these home, kind of look at both of them, see what you think is worthwhile, let's add the structure, and then, as Mike has pointed out several times, it's actually a document we could probably start working on at the beginning of when we start considering all these things, and then, and then by the end, all we have to do is really polish it and finally wordsmith it, but all the meat and potatoes are in it.
This comes out at the end typically, it's like, we don't have a lot of time to look at it, but if we agree on the structure, we can get the structure, we can move the numbers and the details around the end as we get through the discussion there, so.
So that leads me, and this kind of shows up in the new business too, but so the next meeting is typically, if we don't have a need for other reserve fund transfer between now and the close of the fiscal year, the next meeting is usually the reorg meeting. So the first date that really shows up post the end of the fiscal year, that's on a Thursday, is July 2nd, but that's prior to, a holiday weekend. So I don't know what people think about meeting on July 2nd, or do we wait a week and go July 9th?
What could be more patriotic than being on the job?
There you go.
All right, so I'll try and, so right now, I'll just think of it as we're going to meet again on July 9th to go over this, and then we'll also be the reorg meeting, where, we go through and reappoint for the next
Moderator has to
fiscal year.
send out her reappointment letters.
Oh, she hasn't sent them yet?
I haven't gotten mine.
I will let her know that.
Reappointment letters still have to go out, so,
Oh.
for the reorg, so.
Oh, well, those are from the moderator.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, but he without the letter, he can't go to the town clerk to get sworn in, so.
Right.
Is a member's term automatically end on June 30th?
Yes, members' terms always run to the end of the fiscal year.
Not until their replacement is appointed? Okay.
Correct.
Other boards are, you're on for X period or until your replacement.
You're done on June 30th, whether we've got someone or not. There have been times we've done with 7 or 8 people. I know 8 people, we went 2 or 3 years for a long time.
We went 7 for 2.5 years. Remember, Bob Williams,
Was
the
sick,
late
yeah.
Bob Williams, was on the committee but was not here.
Yeah, he could not attend.
Yeah, that created that health exemption.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Actually, it was a lot better.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the restructuring argument for right now. So you've got homework, and we'll go there from that. We'll see.
What are you thinking about for a date?
July 9th, I guess. is-
July 9th.
yeah.
The 2nd doesn't work because the 4th is celebrated on Friday, the 3rd.
Ah, yeah, okay. It's not the Monday like it normally is. Okay. Good to know. All right, then, that moves us into the meeting minutes of April 23rd. While I dig those out. Anyone got comments right now? I'm still trying to You know, my copy, I wasn't able to do my full prep work.
I read them, I liked them.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
We'll take the kudos. I think there was a slight shift in that set, kind of like the draft we sent out on the previous minutes. Instead of Mike said this, Larry countered with that, Jim jumped in, whatever, we were trying to focus on, this is the discussion versus what individual members were
Right.
saying in there, captured in there. So that was the slight change in the tone to that set,
Oh,
but still
yeah.
trying to capture the discussions and any directions that came out of, those discussions.
Probably a good approach.
And that's consistent with other minutes I've read of other committees.
Yes.
It's less detailed and more topical.
But to steal a comment from Larry, but to still let the reader feel like they was at the meeting by what was in there.
The essence.
Okay, then, so,
Over here, it's with that thing, it's hard to hear.
Less conversational, less topical, but your comment of, but to still let the reader feel like they were at the meeting and understood the conversation based on what was in the minutes
Yeah,
there.
but feel for a rational reason.
all right, so then can I get a motion to approve the minutes of April 23rd as written?
So moved.
So MC and Ken Talentino. Any other questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor? 6-0. Great. Okay, that gets us through that. New business?
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know, I guess it's new. We talked about study of some sort for comparison to other towns with us as far as taxes. And we got a copy of this HR thing. And you read, see, this is, by the way, this is an excellent report. I don't know if you read it or not.
Oh, that was a long, yeah,
No,
that's.
they did a great job, but some of the things they did that would help us out already, they already identified, say, 16 towns that they already identified that were close, similar to us.
Right.
So I think a lot of what legwork, some of the legwork, which would have cost us time and maybe money, is already done. The next thing at that point is to try to come up with some other criteria to compare these 16 towns that we think is valuable criteria to come up, and then come up with some sort of result or conclusion as to where we stand as a benchmark for this. Because this wasn't this was not the report comparing us to other towns.
No, I think where that was going is the evolution of comparison towns. We had 10, then we switched to another set of 10, and now we're at 16. Because
Yeah.
that's the last set that was like officially adopted by the town.
Right.
So I mean, it's a matter of, like you said, what are the comparison points amongst those 16 towns?
We have to come
us?
up with that here, right? I mean, that's our job, right? If we want to do, if we
Well,
want to.
I mean, it's not our job per se, but it's something we could try to undertake.
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean,
a good idea.
Right, didn't the EQVs just come out last week? I mean, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going in with the town budget, we might also say for an action item, if anybody feels, take a look at what's important and you think is important to town comparisons as far as driving the tax base, and we'll review it and see what we come up with. Anybody at that point, right? Because we need criteria, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the ones that were all, EQV was always important, average tax bill over average property value, what that percentage is, because that's the one that's, in most of the state is 1.2, and in Sturbridge it's like 1.6.
Yeah.
And so, that, it just goes to say we're higher than normal, but maybe in those 16 towns, they're all 1.6. So to the towns we compare ourselves to, we're right in line with them. I don't know the answer to that question. It's just things that you can come up with.
Kevin,
Yes.
did you forward to the committee the email that I had sent you, that it was a smaller report and there was 2 pages? One was a list of communities and the second page was the criteria that was used to come up with those 16 communities?
I sent out everything that you sent me, so I'm going to say.
I saw that. This report was excellent. Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so-
86 was the marker as far as a comparison, right?
Right, so the criteria, the criteria that they were using to come up with those 16 communities was part of one of the pages of that report.
So we just got to go through that criteria and see which one is more specific to a tax comparison.
I don't mind doing a comparison to get a general feel for where we are. I get a little nervous if we sit here and say, our ratio is this, and it's higher than that, therefore our taxes are too high. I think you gotta also drive into the, what's going on in those communities, right? You know, does that community want 15 DPW staff because they want their roadways maintained and they're willing to pay the money to do that versus someone who's got one truck and two guys and they'll do the best they can? You know, we're driving towards a full-time, you know, 4 people on 24 hours a day fire department versus another one of those communities that still relies on a call department or someone who's got where we were 10 years ago. We've got one full-timer, we're still relying on that. So it's really, you know, maybe our taxes are higher, but our residents are willing to pay a little bit more money because they've got a higher level of services that they're expecting and able to afford in one way versus some other community there. So
Yeah, I agree. Once you get the benchmark, you can come up with anything. I saw the page you're talking about, Barb. I think it was the criteria: population, income per capita, equalized value per capita, total
Yes.
assessed value, tax. I got it all right in front of me. There were 8. Actually, there were 8 of them. Do you think, in your opinion, if you come up with analyze all of these criteria right here, that's going to tell you that in comparison to where a town of 16 stands tax-wise as far as where it would be?
I lost you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't-
Say
I'm
again?
saying this criteria that we just mentioned here, the population, do you think that criteria, if you measure that criteria for each town, that's going to tell you where everybody stands from a tax perspective?
Well, what this report did is it looked at those criteria,
Yep.
and that's how it determined what were comparable communities to Sturbridge. So it was that specific criteria. So it was based on population, the levy, state aid, total budget, again, proximity to Sturbridge. So there would be other communities that you could pull in. I mean, when you're doing comparisons, I mean, depending on what you're looking at. So I think to Mike's point, you know, someone can have the same total budget as us, but it might not be a comparable community based on what that budget is, how that money is spent. Or, you know, you can't just look at the tax rate without putting context to it. So, you know, Sturbridge has 3 debt exclusion votes. So if you don't look at that and factor that in, you could have a community that you're comparing us to, and you say, oh, well, their tax rate is much lower than Sturbridge, so there's a problem. Well, no, there's no problem. They don't have any debt exclusions. So, you know, you have to look at everything together to kind of come up with, you know, with what you're actually comparing. And it's, in my opinion, it's not as easy as just plugging data in and looking at numbers without the context of those numbers.
Oh, I agree with you, but you need the numbers to get to the context. But like on this report that you did for the salaries and all the adjustments here, that you had the same issues, the same problems you talk about that we just discussed. So you had the criteria, but then there's obviously exceptions as far as, you know, like you said, do people share jobs? Do they don't share jobs? Once you get the base, then you can start analyzing your own specific criteria outside of that, and then you put it together and you got the whole package, right?
So,
I think that this is, you know, I think the conversation regarding, you know, comparable communities, I think that's a bigger conversation than just the finance committee. I think that's a conversation that, you know, if there was concern that the communities that are currently being used are not the proper communities. I mean, at this point, the select board, as Kevin said, has adopted this plan, and so until they adopt something else, this is the plan that's in place. But I guess, you know, to your point, if you thought there was another criteria that should be being looked at, I think, you know, that would have to be brought forward to start a discussion. If you felt that the criteria that was used makes sense, then, you know, we have to look at that criteria and see if those communities still fall into a good comparison for Sturbridge.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure out what we would do with those comparisons and how it would change. So maybe we're a little
would
higher,
change.
maybe we're a little lower. On the other hand, if the concern is we're worried about our tax rate being higher than comparable towns, and if the answer was the data says it is, what would we do? Well, it's what we do every budget cycle. Let's
don't
make
do-
sure that the budget we bring forward is within what we can afford and includes the items that are needed, not the, it's nice to have and let's sugarcoat these things along the way because there's an extra affordability. And if we're worried about our taxes being too high, then we don't propose new senior centers or new buildings. We don't staff the fire department and the police department at those levels, or DPW, or we start talking about, you know, services that we're going to curtail to reduce those expenditures. And what we would do for the town of Sturbridge, I think stays within the town of Sturbridge. I don't care what Holland's doing, or Grafton, or Sutton, or Millbury. It's what do the people in Sturbridge want to do, and then how do we, and they have elected officials who hire professional staff to help run the town. They're the ones who set the guidance as to what those criteria are. And our role as a finance committee to say, if that's where you want to take that, these are reasonable expenditures, and this is the proper way to fund the direction you want to go as an elected official.
We did this study with the comparison for the criteria for the, and it was again, excellent study on compensation and classifications, and we compared 16 other towns. So you're saying we should have just done that because we're Sturbridge. Why do we compare it to 16 other towns and say, oh, their criteria is here, and their police chief gets this? That has nothing to do with us because it's our police chief. That we do care of that. We don't have to. Why did we do the study for?
Because that's a typical HR plan when you're trying to set your compensation and attract staff to
Yeah.
deliver the services that are part of what
When
people
you're
want.
looking to do a budget, don't you, why is it different when you want to do a budget and there's no comparison when you want to do a budget? It's just strictly Sturbridge, but when you want to do compensation, then other towns.
Budget does apply strictly to Sturbridge. It doesn't really matter what other towns are doing. It doesn't hurt to say, yeah, we're either completely unrealistic with what we're doing, or we're in line with what we're doing, but I mean,
Well, that's
it's
what we're trying
Sturbridge
to do.
specific.
That's all I'm trying to say. Because like you say, we get the budget in and say it's gonna be 4.2% increase.
Yeah.
We get the macro. We don't push back and say, no, it should be 0, because we say 4.2% and we nitpick
Yeah,
on
and we can
other
afford,
departments.
we can afford to do a 4.2% budget. That's what, or no, we can't. We can only really do it, I mean, there was years we fought over COLA increases, and we said, no, we can only do a 3.8% increase, you know, this year, and that's what we pushed. But, I mean, it has happened, and then you justify the reason why you made it. But it wasn't based on what Charlton was doing or what Southbridge was doing. It was based on what the New England COLA increase was versus what the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator at that time wanted to give as COLA. And it was, you know, the two were pretty widely gapped. I mean, that's something you can take and argue.
So we're not gonna do, we just won't do it's not no value to do a comparison, or it's not our responsibility here, FinCom to do it. We'll just.
I'm not saying there's no value to it. It just will say, yeah, you know, we're in line with what most other towns are doing. And I think you're gonna find that.
Well, that's where the comparison, that's where you need to study, because I don't think so.
Okay.
But that's
If
why
you-
you need.
if you wanna
If
propose
everybody says that the taxes here are high, that's fine.
Everybody in every town says their
Everybody in every town
taxes.
says that.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you wanted to propose specific metrics you think makes sense for us to take a look at, we could, I'd be open to look at what those metrics are and what value we get, and then see if we can get the data, to go behind it. But, again, I'm just, at the end of the day, maybe we're gonna, worst case, it shows that our taxes are high compared to others. Yes, the only way to do that is to start cutting back expenditures. And where would we do that? As a finance committee, recommend people cut back from a budget proposed by the select board, our elected select board members and the staff to deliver the services that they're responsible for delivering as elected officials.
part of our role as far as the FinCom is to basically also set the stage for that. It only kind of say we're proud to present this, it's our budget, we're responsible.
It's not our
for it.
budget. It's our critique of the budget brought forth by the Board of Selectmen and the paid staff. And then we say, yes, this is in line with what we can afford to expend, or no, it's not, or we don't think everything should be collected from property taxes. Maybe we want to use CPA funds to fund this instead. And have you considered that? Or have you considered using this grant to pay for this? That's where we come in.
We're not the surgeon.
Right.
We are another surgeon who looks at the condition and says whether or not there should even be surgery.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
like an
ain't
opinion.
our budget.
Yeah. But we opine upon it.
That's what we
By
do.
definition, that's what the bylaws and the charter says, that's what
Yep.
we do.
We analyze and.
After all, we all sat here of an evening, and the town administrator sat in the chair you're in. And she, with the finance director, presented to the selectmen the budget that they developed. We were observers. It ain't our budget.
Yeah, we saw two contracts come through in last fiscal year that were negotiated, entered into, approved by the elected select board who were operating in this town. Do I think they were a little generous? Yes. In a finance committee, it's really, we've already entered into these agreements, they're binding agreements. We have to find a way to pay for it. That's where I feel my role comes in. Okay, now that you entered into these things, and they have to be funded, what's the mechanism, and, what else do we have to juggle in order to fund these things that you guys have entered into here?
Oh, great, thank you.
If we were around, hey, here's a proposed budget, do we think we should recommend this to town meeting? We'd be in a different, I feel like I was in a different position to make maybe a recommendation one way or the other, but, again, we've got a select board that's elected and responsible for operating a town, setting its direction, setting the priorities that they want to see go forward, staffing in this department, whatever their priorities are, and setting budgets, and for us to make sure that's a reasonable budget, and things are being funded from the right accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Source.
there it is. Look, half the budget is in education. As a finance committee member, what was your role in developing the education budget? None. So how can you say this is our budget?
Well, what do you say, yeah, and I agree with you, but, for instance,
Then what are we talking about anymore?
No, what I'm saying
We're
is-
ready for adjournment.
No, I actually have old business, but I gotta go there first.
Oh, I was gonna say, all I'm saying with the education, but all I'm saying is from a criteria perspective, in Massachusetts, on a macro basis, it's anywhere from 40 to 60% of average budgets, average, is spent on education. So if we come in at 38, we come in at 78, and the rest of it, it's nice to know where we stand. Personally, if I look at the education budget going forward and I see we're under 50% going forward based on a percent, I'm like, is that enough? Maybe we need more. But I have a number in my head because I have some sort of criteria to measure. Either that or what's 50%? I don't know. What's 50%? You gotta be compared to something. There's gotta be
Well,
some rationale.
there is a
You'd
comparison.
be right if you were right, but you're wrong, so you're wrong.
My numbers are all 100% correct.
So if you want, if
But your
there's,
reasoning is inside out and upside down and
All right.
invalid, empty, vapid.
if there's certain criteria, if there's certain criteria I think we
What that
should look
means?
at, you know,
We can put
propose.
that in a glossary.
All right. Any other new business? Old business? I just have two questions, and Barbara, you're still here?
Yeah.
All right, old business. So has the Board of Selectmen taken up any consideration on their sidewalk policy? And where are we going with the $250,000 special piece of equipment?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, and then I still haven't got the explanation about the rationale for why the police department has a pickup truck.
Yeah, you know, I followed up on that, and I didn't get a response yet either, so I will follow up again.
Okay. Thank you.
You gotta throw the prisoners somewhere.
No, well, I have to say, you know, the rationale in the equipment that's being purchased for the town, just on a perceptual basis, I don't have a fact, it's kind of anecdotal, but what you see, it looks like we're buying vehicles that don't suit the town and the purposes that we were told for purchasing them.
Oh, I see.
And so we have these giant suburban-sized police cruisers now, not necessarily. We have a pickup truck as a police cruiser. Why does the town of Sturbridge need a pickup truck? Our giant suburban-sized police cruisers can tow our rubber dinghy from lake to lake to lake so they can do police patrols. And I asked this question, and I was looking for some rationale as to why we're buying vehicles that, to the uninformed eye, look unnecessary and way out of proportion for what the role of a local police department are, and I have yet to get an explanation back.
I see, yeah.
Kevin, we're not responsible for the operations. That's their
Yeah,
job. We just-
but there is,
No,
we are responsible for making
sure.
sure, Ken,
It's their
sure.
operation.
we are responsible for making sure taxpayers' money is spent responsibly.
I agree with that.
In the perception, the optics, in that department at this point in time is not good, at least in my personal opinion. So I asked a question prior to the town meeting, and I have yet to get a response. So that's what I was just looking for.
But it's
It was
not,
after town meeting.
Oh, yeah, you're right, it was after the thing, yes. Sorry, in that
but it's not
recap.
unreasonable for the finance committee to say, I don't recommend a $100,000 pickup truck.
Yeah.
We recommend that, you know, you go for a, you know,
I'll give you a
less
full
expensive
instance.
something
Well,
else.
no, provided we find out first what the rationale the police had.
Right.
We respond to that.
Well, but I'm going to give you a for instance. There was the existing police chief, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago in the capital planning committee, he wanted a vehicle for the court officer. And it was going to be one of these $70,000, $80,000 vehicles, not a full patrol vehicle, but pretty close to one because
What kind of officer for?
for the court officer that goes back and forth to Dudley District
Oh,
Court.
okay.
And I said, why do we need such a big vehicle for court officer? Why can't we buy, you know, a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry? And he said, you know, that's not a bad idea. I'll look into that. Maybe we will consider doing that. Do you think we bought a Toyota Camry or a Honda Accord to go back and forth? No, we've got another gigantic vehicle.
Or one of those vehicles that would be sold to another town, they repaint it, because generally our vehicles are kept pretty well. Keep it, and so what if it's got 800,000 miles on it? It's going to go to Dudley or Worcester and come back. That's it.
I agree, but the questions stay unanswered.
Yeah, which is your point?
Yeah.
I think the question that did get answered is we can't move them between departments.
Right, you can't give a police vehicle to the conservation agent. That's the restriction from the green communities adoption. But it doesn't mean that every vehicle purchased by the police department needs to be, it's not quite a Suburban, but it's the next one down. Was it a Denali or whatever? I mean, they're gigantic if you haven't seen them. I mean, they're monstrous compared to the old Ford Expeditions we had. What does that do to our gas costs and everything else? Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, you're right.
All right, any other world business? Now, Larry, motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Second, 8:15, yep, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Barbara.